A one-legged guy named Stumps thinks he has original artwork from a Neil Young album and wanted me to take a look at it. Let's get into it. Let's start out by finding the album, which is named Hard to Find, and ironically, it was hard to find. I didn't find it on any of the list of Neil Young's discography, it wasn't on Amazon, and it wasn't listed anywhere on his Wikipedia page. As a matter of fact, the first example of it I found was right here on Discog, which shows that it was a CD that was put out in 1994. But oddly, right here at the bottom, it says that this CD cannot be sold on the Discog marketplace, which is definitely kind of odd. So I kept looking and I found a couple of examples that were listed on eBay anywhere from the $50 to $100 range, but there were no solds to actually compare how good those prices actually are. This all proves that this album Hard to Find actually exists, but it doesn't explain why it's not listed with the rest of his discography. And the key to figuring out why was back here on that Discog listing, where it shows that it's part of a series and it is Rarities Volume 17. In order to figure out what the deal was with the series, I looked at the publishing company, which is Westwood One Radio Network, and it all kind of clicked into place. You see, Westwood One is a syndication company that owns the rights to live broadcasts of talk radio, music, and sports, and then they use this catalog in order to produce an income off of it. And it becomes obvious by the track list that this is exactly what Westwood One did here. They took a bunch of live radio broadcasts of Neil Young performances, slapped it all onto a CD, and then started to sell it. But because they don't own the copyright to those songs, and those copyrights are already owned by record companies that Neil Young had previously worked with, this was technically a bootleg CD. And the status as a bootleg CD is exactly why it's not available on Discog or Amazon, because violating those copyrights violates agreements that those companies already have in place with the record companies. So now that we know the album exists, it's time to take a look at this artwork, and this is exactly what I would expect to see for a layout that was done in the mid-90s. You see, before Photoshop, everything had to be done by hand, which is why you have all of these different pieces of film with different components of the album itself that are taped together in very specific locations on these oversized pieces of orange paper. As a matter of fact, some of the lettering on this album cover, like right here where it says Hard to Find, had to be cut by hand with an X-Acto knife in order to produce this specific cover. But all of the different components on this artwork seem to match up exactly with what the CD should look like. Everything from the title itself to the picture of Neil Young to the logo of Westwood One Radio that actually appears on the back all match the CD exactly. So if all that fits, why are they mounted on these big pieces of orange paper? Well, the clue to that is right here at the bottom where it says Hamada 600. The Hamada 600 is a single color offset lithography commercial printer that would be used to produce album covers in quantity as you would need to for a CD that you were distributing. And the reason the grid pattern exists on all those pages is that in order to print that album cover, you would have to run each piece of paper through the printer more than one time in order to get the multiple colors that are on it. By mounting both the monochrome and the red pieces of this album cover to the page in exactly the same position, it allows you to avoid misregistration like you see right here and make sure that your offset printer is going to be printing the colors exactly on top of one another in the exact same position, so it creates one cohesive image. All of this makes me very comfortable that it's a genuine item, but establishing price is a little bit more difficult, because when you start doing searches on original artwork cover, that's really not what this is, because an original piece of artwork for this cover would be a simple print of that picture of Neil Young done by the original photographer. What this actually is the layout from a cover printing. That means that all of these search results that pop up under original artwork aren't really comparables to this item. It took a little bit of digging, but I did find a couple of layout pieces. First, there are these layout sheets from a Rolling Stones album that went for $2,000 on eBay with 2 bidders, but Neil Young obviously isn't the Rolling Stones, and the image isn't this beautiful montage of different celebrities from the time period. And both of those factors make me feel like this is not a good comparison for the artwork we have in front of us. A better comp are these color keys from a Kate Bush album in the 1980s. Color keys are another part of the production process where they're actually approving the different colors that are used in the album printing. Now you have to consider in that $300 to $2,000 price range, you have a couple of factors at play. Number one, this is a bootleg album, not part of his standard discography, and you also have to be really intimately familiar with the Neil Young collectible market in order to establish a hard and fast price. What I will say is that this is definitely a unique, one-of-a-kind item, and the only way to sell it is at an open auction. And based on the comps of these two items, I would expect it to start out anywhere in the $250 range, but I would be surprised if it went over $750 because it is not an official album. Stumps, I hope this helps.